talking about legacy, but now I know you speak to safety professionals around the world, but I would like to know and explore with you what is the key trends do you believe the professionals, they should pay attention to in preparing to stay ahead in the field? So what is your key messages for the safety professionals looking the trends that we are facing now?
Yeah, I think that that's a really, really good question. There's a lot to answer that. I think I'll tie it into the conversation we were having a little while ago about how our focus is not so much on compliance anymore. We've sort of moved into other areas. And I think as a professional, that to me has been another part of my career, is that the profession needs to evolve, just like any other profession. We're no different, no worse, no better. But you need to evolve in terms of how you think about things and how you do things and the methods that you use. And so I think what I've certainly done over the years is I've tried to be, again, intentional about and introspective about what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I've talked a couple of times about another aha moment that I had about 10 years ago. And I started to think about, when I was working with folks and serving as a safety professional, I didn't feel like I was being very successful, and was sort of like, why aren't people doing what they're supposed to do? And I started reading about and hearing about a number of folks who were beginning to talk about these ideas of that we now think of as HOP, and safety differently, and learning teams and learning reviews. And I started doing a deep dive and reading and learning and understanding. And I read a really excellent book by a woman by the name of Rosa Carrillo called The Relationship Factor in Safety Leadership. And it hit me that, and the idea behind it is that we first have to develop relationships with people that are built on trust and respect before we can influence them. And as safety leaders, we've sort of done the opposite. And it was when I read that book that I said, aha, maybe it's not the worker that's the problem. Maybe it's me. And maybe I need to change the way I do things if I want different outcomes. And that sort of started my journey. And I've really spent a lot of time over the past years really understanding and implementing practices that center around HOP and safety differently, around the value of the worker, the role that they play. As Todd Conklin says, the fact that they are resources to be harnessed, not problems to be solved. And when I began to make that shift, I began to see that difference. And so in terms of our profession, I think more and more of us are beginning to really appreciate and understand that our methods need to change if we want different outcomes. And it's been gratifying to participate with other folks in that area. Megan and I were at a really great event a couple of months ago, Safety on the Edge, in California, which really talked a lot about the edge, right? Where are we in terms of our profession, and how are we changing things, and what's the dynamic way that we want our profession to evolve? So I think it's been very important part of my journey the past 10 or 12 years to really rethink some of the things that I learned in my early stages of my career, and understand that they weren't serving me or the people in my organizations. And so I needed to change.
I think usually the professionals, the safety professionals, we see follow some prescriptions. And I think we need to go deep in the context of listen the people, go to the Gamba, so explore the real situation, the real work. And I think
Right.
this is the aha, because we change and we starting to doing things different, innovate, because we align with the context. And sometimes we use the prescription. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, in my last company, I used this. So this tool was very helpful and we can implement now. But we don't align this with the context because we don't know the context. We need to spend time in the context. I think this is a super powerful insight today. Go to the Gamba, understand the context. Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And the bottom line is that relationship that Rosa talks about, that's based upon respect and trust, is really where it starts. And without that, then your success is going to be much more challenging. And so if you start with that, then everything grows from there. That's sort of the perspective I have on it.
Megan, I would like to explore more this question. How we can influence the people to go in this direction? To go to understand, to go deep dive in the context, to go to building trust.
Well, so it really starts with a fundamental belief, I think, in the goodness and the dignity of people that come to work every day. Sidney Dekker talks about that dignity, that essential dignity. Because if we look at a worker, an hourly laborer in a manufacturing facility, and we can't see the dignity behind who they are and what they do, and have start with a respect for them, then so much is lost. And so our influence, as you say, is really based upon that relationship that we have and that fundamental appreciation for that person and who they are. And I've come to believe that we may think we appear respectful and interested in what people have to say, but people know differently if that's really not what we believe. If we're just asking those questions because we think we're supposed to ask those questions, what do you think? And how can we solve this? And okay, well, thank you for your idea. I'm going to go back and do it the way I wanted to do it anyway. I think people really understand that, and they pick up on that. And again, I think this is true in work life and in non-work life, really. I mean, it's just people. It's just interacting with people. And I think when you approach someone with a sincere appreciation and respect for them, they feel it. And if it's not sincere, they feel it. And so when you have that respect and that relationship, then you're much better able to influence that person or to influence the organization, or to work together to figure out how to influence the organization.